Hi, sir.
Hello. Hi everyone.
Hi. So you shared.
Yeah, I'm just sharing the.
Oh my God! So sick.
Hello everyone.
Hi, sir.
Hi, sir.
Okay, hi. Okay, there are more people coming in. Just hold on. Yeah, am I audible? I'm going to mute all of you as every time, and we will continue on. We will continue on the chat. Okay.
Hi, sir.
Hi. Hope you can hear me all. Great. Fine. Cool. Yeah, good evening, good morning, depending on where you are. And yeah, Vedansh, yeah, I'm just reviewing your things. I think I asked you one question, I believe. So I think just check that. And yeah, okay. I think I will just wait for a minute and then we'll start. And today it is going to be, as I said, I'm going to wrap up the L1 course today. I'm just going to do some review of all the concepts, and I'm going to show a couple of games, master games. We'll also look at one or two suggested books, and that's how we will conclude the level 1 today. We will have our playfest on Sunday. We'll play games. I think next 2-3 weeks, probably we will only meet on Sunday for the games. Meanwhile, I will be preparing for the level 2 course material, and I think you folks should also take care. Anyone who has to catch up certain concepts, maybe solve more problems on the chess king, etc., you can do that. Some of you might have missed some lectures. You can watch it on the YouTube, etc., and get yourself ready. All of those, I think I'm going to put a good condition entry for the level 2. One of them is obviously this examination that you have done, but also things like you should have solved enough puzzles on the chess king site on capture 1 and mate in 1 that I said. That should be mandatorily solved. So things like that, I think we'll see. Okay, I think we will get started. So what I will do is, yeah, this is my actually presentation deck which I had prepared for my coaching. I will just quickly go through it, not all the things, but yeah, some materials which all of you have seen it, but let me go to full screen mode. Yeah, I think we had seen all these movements of various pawns, knights, bishops, rooks, etc. All of this, you are familiar with it. You should be so familiar that just as it is marked in the screen, anytime, even if a rook is placed on the board, you should be in your mind. You should be able to visualize where all it goes, where all it covers, especially the knights. If you see the knights here, the knight movement basically from alternating movement from black to white, white to black, etc., and the all around circle of the knight, right? This should be very visible in your mental model, mental picture. You should be able to see this like this when you see the chessboard. So for that, you have to do a lot of board level movements and get it into your head. Okay, then what we had covered is, yeah, we had covered this queen side, king side. I hope you remember, all of you. Black side, vertically when you decide, left side is the queen side, right side is the king side, then black's half of the board, right's half of the board. Then we had looked at the center, the broad center, and the uh, main center or the core center, which is at the really at the middle. So I hope you recall all of this and understand the importance of it.
Yes, sir.
And then yeah, this is again uh, the board view, and as well as the values of the various pieces and their symbols. So I think every one of you should be able to easily look at this symbol and understand, because this is also used in chess notation in various books or things. In fact, I mean, nobody writes descriptively like king, queen, etc. Right? Yeah, somebody chatting. Let me see. Yeah, I'm recording. I think recording is going on. Yes, thanks for reminding. Yes. Yeah. So what I was saying is, uh, while writing, you always write either in the short notation like K, Q, R, B, N, etc. P, there is nothing is written as P. It is simply the square that is written. And the symbols, I hope you are all very familiar and you will be able to read this. Okay. This is very crucial for your next stage of improvement and learning. So why these symbols are used, I'll tell you
Sir,
one. Yeah.
can you just go back to the last slide? I just wanted to.
Okay. Let me just go back. Yeah.
Okay, so green side, white side, and the center. Okay, fine. Got it. Thanks.
This is there in the handout that I had given. That PDF I've given there also. It is there. I think you should take, all of you should take a. I mean, if you are familiar digitally, you can keep it digitally. Otherwise, take a printout of those and file it. All the handouts that I had given, and refer to it. Yeah. So what I was saying is, why these symbols are important is, there are many chess books which are written in international chess language. Okay, and as you know, the main chess players all over the world are like in Russia, Eastern Europe, Germany, etc. Right, and all of these, France also, apart from England, US, as well as other English-speaking countries. But the majority of the chess players are in the non-English-speaking countries. Right, so naturally, a language of chess has evolved, which is like international symbol based, because if you write in only one descriptive language like English, then other people cannot read it, and so like this. So uh, hence this international language of symbols is there, where there is no text. Okay, there is no words like that, but it is, everything is expressed with symbols, and the symbols have a standard meaning, so that even if a Czechoslovakian player, he can publish his analysis in that, and a German player can understand it, or a German player can publish and we can understand it, right? So that's why this is the language of chess. I will talk about, I think in the level 2, I will talk about the detailed symbols that are used in the chess language, but here at least these you should know. What is the symbol for the king, queen, rook, bishop, knight, and pawn, without making any mistakes, right? All of you are familiar with the values of the pieces, right?
Yes, sir.
Approximately, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Pawn is 1, and knight and bishop are
3.
equal to almost 3. Sometimes it might be 3.25, sometimes it might be 2.95, etc. Practically, but what it
Consider as 3.
yeah, more or less it is equal. Then the rook is definitely more powerful. We have seen it. Why? Because it can also checkmate the lone king. Queen is ultra powerful, right? Equal to almost 3 minor pieces. So bishop and knight are called as minor pieces, and rook and queen are called as major pieces, right? Major pieces can checkmate the king alone, based on their strength, but minor pieces cannot, right? So so that is the distinguishing feature. All right, so let me go to the next one. Yeah, this is the chessboard. I'm just doing a revision for you, in case anyone does not fully understand the matrix. See, this is how the matrix is there. All the rows are numbered 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Columns are A B C D E F G H, right? And the symbol is always with a column notation followed by the row notation. So column is A, and row is 1, then the square name is A1, right? B2, C3, D4, like this, right? Or D3. So you know that D3 means column is D, and the column, what we call in column, in chess language, we call column as file, right? And row as rank. I hope you remember that, files and ranks, right? Okay, and this notation, I hope actually when some of you gave me the submission for the problems, right? Some of you have written in this language, which is what is expected. Some of you have written in descriptive, like rook moves to e7. So you have written like r double ok, etc. I mean, I get it, and I am taking that answers. But what is really expected is that you write in this language like this. So I hope. Who was that? I don't recall now exactly who, but 2 3 of you have sent to me.
So
Uh,
me, I wrote it in Rook, like that.
yeah, but not just you, some more people also have written, so that's why I'm just covering this summary again. So I hope you understand how to write like this. Bishop means you have to just write capital B and the square to which it is going to, right? Rook means capital R and the square that it is going to. Now sometimes you have to give additional information, because there are two different knights can, for example, they can go to the same square, and then you have to tell which one has gone. And then you can additionally indicate by putting the source knight, which is which knight has moved. So either you can say knight nbd7, which means that the knight which is there in the b file has gone to d7, or nfd7 will mean the knight which is on f file has gone to d7. I will show you what I mean slightly in 1 second. But like this, or sometimes there are, in case of bishops there is never a confusion, because both the bishops are of different colors, so they cannot go to the same square, right? But rooks can go, two rooks, it can be in a position that both of them are possible to move to the same square. Knights it is possible, right? So for these things sometimes you have to give additional indication to know, tell exactly which rook has moved or which knight has moved. But I hope the notation is very clear. Anybody has any question on this notation? Especially this at the bottom right, what we have written, right? E4, E5, BC4, BC5. I hope all of you understand it. If you have any questions, please ask right now.
Sir,
Yeah,
BC BC4 is the bishop,
yeah.
like bishop
Bishop,
to C4,
bishop is going to C4 square, correct.
and then N is for knight.
N is for knight.
Correct.
So yeah, N is for knight. Knight is going to C3 square, third move.
Is it knight KN? Is it knight KNIGHT?
Yeah. I mean the full word is KNIGHT, but the symbol is, letter symbol is N,
Okay.
right? Like what we had seen here. N is knight,
Fine.
right?
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, and in case of pawns, you don't have to put any symbol, because just put the square, and that when you don't put any symbol, then people understand that what you are moving is pawn, right? Like E4 in first move, E4 means that the pawn has gone to E4, right? Okay. Any questions on this? Yeah, so those of yeah, you might want to, so those of you, you don't have to send it back to me, but in those of you who have written in descriptive form, again go back and write your answers in the this chess notation form. Okay, so this is what is actually when you are playing, I make everyone write their games initially, note it down in this notation compulsory in a notebook, so that people get it. I'm not able to do this in online form, but when I take classes directly here in my neighborhood, that time I make everybody write their moves in a notebook, and I also ensure that there are points for that initially, so that people actually take it very seriously and write it. But this is a entry level criteria for going into level 2 class.
Sir, but writing in the notebook, doesn't it distract you?
It does not actually. There are, in fact, if you are, unless you are playing a very short game like 5 minutes etc, but not but and that comes later. So when, especially when you are in the learning phase, you should always write the moves. In fact, there is a technique that even before you make the move, you should write it down, okay, so that your mind goes in actually recording exactly, and then again you should go back to the chessboard and just think in your mind oh, what I have written, this is what I'm going to make. Am I making some mistake? Is my opponent able to simply take something freely, or able to give a checkmate or something like that? So you should again just reevaluate it.
Hmm.
And for that, it helps that you take a 2 seconds to write it down, the move, before actually you make it. Okay, this is the
Okay.
way that that you are supposed to play in serious chess actually.
Okay.
Yes, yes, all the grandmasters, if you see, they write it in a book, or not a book, or a page. Actually, there is a page, score sheet is there. And if you want, I can send the soft copy of the score sheet, which you can use it, print it and use it for purposes, your purposes. But it looks exactly uh, like what I show on the chess base. I will show you in a minute. So so let me see, I can show it to you. Mm, and score sheet. Okay, so this is how, can you see the score sheet? This is how the actually the score sheet looks like. Typically, if you go into tournaments and all, they will give this kind of a sheet, and you'll have to write who is playing white, who is playing black, what is the date, etc. And then you are supposed to write your moves like this. Can you see this in the screen on the right side? Yeah, Madhura, I think what is the rules are that for standard time controls, which are like 2 hours each or more, there you are always expected to write the moves. Only in very short time controls like 15 minutes each, etc. Then you are exempted from writing. But otherwise, so I think it is important that you at your stage first master the art of writing accurately the chess moves. Later on, when you become really good at it, and then you know you can skip it, etc., that is something that is possible. But otherwise, you should write it, and in the beginning it is mandatory. So I make it mandatory for people to write it. Okay, all right. Yeah, let me go back to the presentation. And
So, my
yeah,
father's father was a chess grandmaster.
yeah, that is very great. Yes, absolutely. And I'm trying to find out
What's his
material
name?
about. So actually, my maternal great grandfather, right, was means my mother's grandfather. Okay,
Okay.
back in the 1930s or 40s, he was the chess champion of uh, Bombay State. In that time, it was Bombay
In
State, means it was
Mumbai.
a, yeah. Now we call it Mumbai, but it used to consist of Gujarat, Maharashtra, and part of Karnataka, and everything combined, and some part of Madhya Pradesh, etc. So all of that was combined. Oops, I think someone is. Yeah, too much noise was coming, so I have muted again everybody. I think you should take care. Anybody, whoever, there is no noise if you are attending and if you are on unmute. Yeah, yeah. So what I was saying is, yeah, he was a champion of the Bombay State in those British times. So I'm also trying to do some study, find out. I have not got any recorded games yet. I have to do some research. Yeah, I think. So, and who was speaking is actually my nephew. So he had joined from Pune, I think. So yeah, so both of us share that. His great grandfather, my great grandfather. So that is what was. All right. So that was a slight diversion. So coming back, yeah. So we have looked at openings, right? Aims of the opening to open the, give maximum scope to your pieces, especially your bishop and queen. Bring out your knights to the relevant, to the natural squares, and stake claim in the center, right? That is the that is the stage of the opening. Middle game is when the complex lot of all your pieces are developed, castling has happened and all, and then you are trying to actually fight the main battle of trying to get superiority. That is what is the middle game. And end game stage is when very few pieces are left. Typically less than 10 men are there on the board, including counting both black and white. So for example, in this position in the end game, you are seeing there are 5 men on the board, like 3 pawns and 2 kings, right? Roughly you can say that when less than 10 member are there on the board, then yeah, I think we will want to see that. Yeah. Yeah, so when less than 10 men are the board, roughly you can say that it is in the end game stage. 10 or 12, I think it is okay. So that is roughly the end game stage. So uh, we will go on and yeah, tactics is where immediate exploitation of opportunities, like capturing a piece, right? You have done some puzzles on capturing a piece. That is like a tactical opportunity. Within 1 or 2 moves, you can gain something, gain an advantage. Sometimes mate in one is also a tactic, right? Because it's in 1 or 2 moves you are giving a checkmate, right? Those are called as tactical positions, and you have to be really a master of it if when you improve on chess. And I've just given examples, but these are the things that you will study as you go ahead. For example, in the second position, you check, right? The white queen, if white queen is to move, white is to move, if the queen moves to the e4 square, right, it is threatening checkmate to the black king on h7. I've shown it with that arrow. And at the same time, it is threatening to take the black rook, which is undefended, on a8, right? So this is called as a tactic. So if this is the position, then there is a tactical shot available for white. He can just make a move. Obviously checkmate is more important to prevent, so black will try to play g6, right, or something like that, right? So to prevent the checkmate, and then white will be able to win the rook which is on a8, which also I've shown it with the arrow, right? So these are the, I mean, so you have to be alert to these kind of things. So we have learned only a very simple kind of tactic pin, and I gave some puzzles based on that in the exam. But as you grow, there are like multiple levels, so you will have to learn it at level 2, then you will have to level 3, and keep going and going till you go to level 8 or 9, so till you become a real master, I think. So there are lot of things to study in chess tactics, okay, and mastery, and it should come out in your mind very quickly. That is the way to go. Strategy is more long term play, which is like a plan that you have, especially in the middle game, when two players are roughly equal and they are not making any silly mistakes, so they are not giving any simple chances for the opponent, both of them, in which case the struggle really starts with strategy. Then you have to have a strategy of what you will do in the long term, what is the plan, etc., right? So I've just shown some strategies here, but just to indicate. But all of this comes as you reach a stage where you do not lose pawns, pieces, or checkmates by mistake. So that is the first stage that you have to reach, okay? And that I mean, again, that is relative, because even if I play against a grandmaster, I will probably get bitten black and blue. But just as some of you might have seen, I while playing with me, you might have lost some queen or some knight or something like that suddenly, right? And that happens because of the level difference. But at least when you are playing in your own level, it should not easily happen. So that is the thing. That's how you should reach that level of things. And then strategy comes into picture. So strategy is something that you learn. I will teach strategy only in maybe level 3 or level 4 onwards, maybe level 4 only. Till level 3 I will not even cover strategy, okay? It is all about one. I used to be at level 8 at my peak, as per my classification. I think right now I'm probably, because I'm not playing much, I'm not in too much touch, I will be at level 7. Some if I go into a tournament, I might even be at level 6, because you have to be really practicing and playing and very much into it. But yeah, I used to be at level 8 some time back. Okay, so that is another thing.
Rishita's.
All right, let me just go next. And okay, so since you asked what is level 8 and then how many levels are there, in my classification there are 14 levels. If you consider like world championship or challenger is like level 14, then coming down, then that is where it is like uh, I would be probably at level 8 max. Okay, and then this one. No, I was not a good player at all when I was a kid. So that is interesting, because in fact, till I went to college, I hardly used to play chess. I knew how to play chess little bit, and sometimes I used to play, but I was never really good at it. I learned most of my chess only in second year college, or even later. After
Wow.
that, maybe after the age of 17, 18, later on that. So that's why I mean, yeah, I was a very late learner, and I think the earlier you learn, the more scope you have of becoming much stronger earlier and then being able to make it. Yeah. Okay, fine. Then coming to positional play, yeah, positional play and like strategy go together, but positional play is like you have to. It is not like a direct attack, winning something, etc. But small, steady improvements in the position, and slowly you make it better and better. It is like a, yeah. If you want to give a analogy, right? If you people know Steve Waugh, how he used to play, he was a great player during my time. Steve Waugh used to play, or who was that? I think there was one Sri Lankan, Arjun Ranatunga, right? They used to always make a, while winning and playing in cricket, they were chasing a score. They never used to hit like real sixes or boundaries or anything. They used to just take singles and doubles and keep rotating the strike and still make a lot of runs and easily win the game, right? So that is like equivalent to a positional play versus Chris Gale or such a Sehwag or even Tendulkar, etc. Right? They are all like attacking players, right? They will hit lots of boundaries, sixes, etc. And that is like a tactical play. So there's that the difference. The positional play, you might appear it a little bit boring, but they'd never give. I think Rahul Dravid was like, you can say, was a positional player in analogy, right? He used to play very technically correct, slowly. Will play and take his. He will not give much chance for the opponent to get his wicket, right? So which is in chess terms, it is like not giving a chance to tactics, but you steadily control everything and keep increasing slowly your advantage, right? So that is positional. Then defense again is a very important topic, in fact much overlooked topic. So if you want to become a good real expert and master at chess, you will have to master defense. Again, I have some things in mind, but it's okay to first till level 3. It is okay if you are alert that you are not losing anything directly, obviously. And as you go into level 4 and all, there are some specific things that you need to master at the defense level. Okay, how to defend accurately. Okay, pattern recognition is a very important aspect of chess, and as you improve, basically, because the more you play or the more you have seen more games or solved puzzles, various patterns go into your head. This is the way I can give this check and I can move like this, etc. So those are the kind of things that go in. For example, now the left side is the position that is there on the board, but a good player will immediately in his mind, he will know that, oh, if this is the position, then these are the possibilities. Bishop can take the h7 pawn, give the check to the king, and if the king takes it, then the knight can jump to g5. Bishop takes h7, king h7, knight to g5 check, and wherever king moves doesn't matter. Queen next move queen can come to h5. All of this I have shown it with arrows on the right side of the board, right? And this can become a mate threat actually. If the knight is on g5, the queen is on h5, and you are threatening the mate both at f7. You are threatening f7 pawn, and you are threatening the h7 square. The pawn would have been removed by that time. So there are these mating possibilities that come. So these are the things that will immediately spring to your mind if you have done a lot of study, practice puzzles, and actually played the games and watched some good master games, right? So patterns will pop up in your mind and it will become easier. Everything you don't have to calculate like a computer, but your mind works very well with patterns. So that is very, very important. And that is why I keep insisting that you have to solve those puzzles. You have to solve those puzzles, right? Even if they are very simple or whatever they may look, but the more you solve them, the more patterns go into your head. And then psychology, this I will not cover. This is yeah, this is more detailed.
Excuse me.
Yeah. Then there are some more things. This I will send a PDF. You can take it on from the WhatsApp group. But this is how basically instructions and all. And yeah, what are the things to do to really get a mastery, right? Strong theoretical foundation, systematic and hard work. So hard work, but also smart work, right? So that is very important. Great pattern recognition. Play regularly. I still say that regularly over the board you should play it and handle the chess pieces with your hand. There is some very specific things that you do when you make anything with your hand. Then actually you learn it, and there are some studies on the internet, because nowadays people are more and more learning only on the screen. But it is, yeah, there are some studies which show that actually when you do some activities with the hand, you grasp it at a much deeper level. So that's why I suggest that even in today's world, uh, find time to play with your. Okay, great. So I think Srushti is saying that she got 2 trophies in the chess tournament. Excellent. So that is very nice. Congratulations. Fine. So wait, somebody else is saying something. Yeah, yeah, great. And yeah, good time management. Yeah, play regularly over the board. So that is very important. I say at least at this stage, you definitely play with a physical board at your home or at your school or whatever, or in your neighborhood, and do that along with the online play. Good time management. Yeah, I think some of you have seen when we were playing that you are losing on time, etc. Right? So that happens. You have to be, you don't have to be unduly hurried, but at the same time you have to pay attention to how much time is there. And yeah, so my thing is, if you are ready to play or not play, ready to study chess 1 hour every day, 365 days per year, 3 years in a row, you will definitely become a chess master at level 9, which is okay, level 8 or level 9 you will reach. So that is very much possible. I think it is, and you don't have to be like some natural genius like Tendulkar or any such thing. All of you, if you are ready to do hard work, this much hard work, but it is not easy. But if you are ready to do this much hard work, then you can reach the level 8 or level 9. Okay? So yeah, and then these are the levels which I have put it with some example from Chess King also, like what is a level 1, what is expected, level 2, what is expected. uh, yeah, I mean roughly it is what it is. And then level 6 is like club player, like level 1 is beginner, then amateur, budding player. I mean these are terminology that I have crafted, but uh, roughly you can say level 6 is like a strong club player. Okay, various chess clubs might be there in your neighborhood or your city or whatever it is, right? Level 7 is like a expert, and level 8, yeah, there is some this one here, but level 8 and 9 are like properly rated players, right? Like internationally rated players. That comes into like level 8 and level 9, right? And then after that it becomes even more. So that is the roughly the things. uh, yeah, we had covered these details, the chess websites and channels, YouTube channels. I think I had shared with you earlier in one of the classes. You have that. Yeah, I think I was going to talk about the books, right? In case yeah, anyone has got what chess books, if you have any, you might want to put it on the chat. Let me just want to know in case you have anything. Otherwise I have these suggestions. Okay, Madhura, you have some this one. Which chess book? But I will want to know who is the author and what is the name of the chess book, if you recall. Chess Tactics for Kids by Murray Chandler. Okay, Harin, you got it. Yeah, so I think that will be, I'm sure that will be a good book on tactics. 52 tricky traps. Okay, good. I think these are all opening tracks. Okay, that's what you have it. Okay, all right. So tricky tactics and traps. Okay, fine. Uh, Chessmate. Okay, Madhura, you have the Chessmate magazine, huh? Okay, all right. So that is good. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? Anyone else has any books or things that you are referring to? Okay, so fine. Okay, you have Ahan has 100 different end game. Oh, you have end games. That is actually a yeah. I mean, that is very important book to study, Ahan. And if you are really studying it, then excellent. I mean, I have some suggestions on the end games. And it is a very important topic to cover. In fact, what I cover in my chess class in the first 2 levels or 3 levels will be mostly tactics and end games, because that is what is the right way, and that is the Russian way of learning, right? And so it is very important to get tactics right and being able to know your end games. So it's very old, you're saying, huh? Ahan, okay, all right. Maybe sometime I will want to see it. You stay close by. So yeah, GM Varuzan Akobian. Okay, so that is a book, or what is that, Madhura? It is a book, huh? Or it's a video lecture? Videos. Okay, okay. I thought so. Yeah, yeah. He's a good thing, I think. And on online also, he has got a good set of lectures. Yeah. So what I'm going to suggest is, if you want to pick up a book, right? Then I have suggested this introductory books. These are the 3 books, and you any one of them you can pick up. Okay, right? uh, I like the first move, but it is like almost out of print, or you get very few. The book title is Your First Move. It is by Sokolsky. It's a Russian player. I see sometimes it is available on Amazon. And uh, yeah, I mean, I will send you this PDF so you can check that, or the link. But it's an excellent book. It covers a lot of stuff, what is essentially required for your like level 1, 2, and possibly level 3 also, right? uh, it covers it in a single book. And yeah, it is available on Amazon, at least in US I think it is available. Then the other book, that similar book but slightly different way of presenting, it is Yasser Seravant's Play Winning Chess. Again, covers a lot of uh, aspects like force, space, and time. That is the way that it what do you call it covers. But it's again a very good book. Uh, and third one, which again I use it for a lot of my course material, is Comprehensive Chess Course Volume 1 and Volume 2 by Lev Albert. And another one. So Lev Albert is again a Russian grandmaster. He collaborated with some American authors and has created this course, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Very good books, very good material. If you follow this, you can do self-study also. And if you are very serious and if you can do it, I mean, you will reach a lot of, I mean, you will reach like level 4, level 5 easily just based on these 2 books. But you have to be really disciplined and being able to study yourself. Again, I'm hearing some noise, so I'm going to mute. And yeah, muted. So yeah, so if at all you want to pick up one of these 3 books, you might want to pick up. Okay. Then some other books which are listed there, which are at a next level, like level 3 and all will, level 3 and beyond will be the intermediate. Introductory books will definitely help you up to level 1, level 2, possibly level 3 also. But level 3, 4, 5, you will, these intermediate level books will help. And 5, 6 also probably. And then beyond that will be the expert level books, which you can, which will be there. So yeah, I mean, this is just for your reference, but yeah. Okay, so I think that is okay. So how much? Okay. Any questions on this? Any?
So I just have one question. Did I qualify?
I will tell that to you. I think you have qualified. I think Vedansh, but let me just review.
So if
I
you don't qualify, I'll have to do beginner again and then
you will have to. If at all you don't qualify, then yeah, you will have to take a second test maybe after 2 weeks or so. Okay, and there is enough time. Don't worry. I think that's why I've given a break for both catch up, self study. There are some more material, etc. before the level 2 starts. So
can we just play some games?
I want to cover rather than play game, right? I want to cover one game today.
Yeah, okay.
And which is a very instructive game from Paul Morphy. You have
Morpheus,
heard?
the Morpheus.
Yeah, the Morpheus Academy comes from the name Morphy.
So I have.
Noise is coming. Wait. I think there is some background noise is coming. So use the chat mechanism.
Sir. Sir.
Yeah. I suggest you use chat rather than voice because I'm muting everybody. Vedansh or anybody else, type on the thing. Yeah, your questions you can type it and yeah. Okay. All right. So we are going to be going to see this master game quickly from Paul Morphy, right? And how he this game will illustrate because what happens many times I think what happens is when you bring out the queen early, right? What happens, right? How do you so this is like a masterly demonstration of how to take advantage when the opponent moves queen too early, right? It is not a suggested thing to play. You have to develop your knights and pieces. Who was the instructor before you for Morpheus chess? No, there was nobody. I have created it myself. So, oh, I have shown this game, huh? Okay. Did I show this game? All right. If I have shown this game, then let me show. Akshay says he don't remember. I am not sure. I don't think I might have shown a similar game by Greco probably. I'm not sure. But yeah, let us see through it. But I think it's a very interesting game. Yeah.
Sir, which color is Morphe Paul? Morphe?
So, sorry, what is the question?
Which color is Morphe? Is he white or black?
Yeah. First, see here in the game notation, you see Paul Morphy versus McConnell James, right? That means Morphy was white and McConnell was black, right? This game was played.
So is it always like whoever has the first name is white and the second will be black?
Yes, always, yeah. Okay. So okay, let us see this. So Queen F6. Okay. So now in what is the speciality of this game is that right from fourth move. Okay, third move. Let us see what white makes. Knight c3. He develops a knight, defends his pawn. Okay. Third move, he is not attacking, and black plays c6. Black wants to next play d5 with the help of his c6 pawn. Right. That is the plan. The speciality of this game is that from fourth move onwards, continuously Morphy is going to attack and create threats every move. Okay, this is like a real masterly demonstration. So let us see how he starts, right? How he starts and how to take advantage of this. He plays d4, opening the thing, threatening to take the e5 pawn, right? So black takes the pawn. Black takes e takes d4. Okay, now Morphy doesn't bother about how to defend his knight right now, which is attacked. So look at the next move, e5. Okay, attacking the queen. The pawn is defended by the knight at f3. Right, queen has to move. So queen goes to g6. Now, white's knight is attacked, and queen is now also uh, uh, has moved. So white. What does white move?
Bishop,
to
yeah.
d3. Right, attacking the queen again. But have you noticed what has happened to the g2 pawn? G2 pawn does not have any support. Queen is attacking it. Right?
Yeah.
So what does black do? Black says, okay, I am taking the pawn. So now black has taken one more pawn. Two pawns black has taken, plus the white knight is under attack at c3. Right? But what does white do? White is developing. Just see how much development white has got. 3 minor pieces already developed.
Rook to g1.
Anything except the queen. And he further attacks with the rook. Now this rook is not only attacking the queen, but also the rook is getting developed, we say. Why we say developed? Because it has got an open file in front of it. There is no pawn in front of it. That means the entire rook's force is like coming out. Right? So queen has to go to.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
What
Type it. Can you type it? Can you type it? Because we'll keep the mute on. So type your question and I will read it and I will answer. Vedansh?
Just a 1 minute, I'm typing.
Okay. So while you type, but I hope, okay, can we move the king 2 steps ahead at first? No, king can never, the only time the king moves 2 steps is when it is castling. But here that is not a possibility now. This rook has moved, so castling is not possible. So, but otherwise all the moves king can make only 1 step at a time. Only in case of castling it moves 2 steps. Okay, fine. So now the rook is also developed now in this position, while black has only the queen which is developed. So let us see what happens next move. Next move again, the rook attacks the queen. See, continuing to attack. Queen has got hardly any square that it can go to. Right? Queen is going to, which square it is going to?
G5.
Yeah, it is going to, queen to h5, rook to g5, again attack the queen. Okay.
Queen to h3.
So queen goes back to h3. Okay. Now, what is the white moves?
Bishop to f1.
F1 and again attack the queen. Okay. See, there are very hardly any squares left for the queen. Right? Queen does not want to go to h6. Why? Because the rook can move and give a discovered attack against the queen. Right? Because the bishop at c1 is like masked. The force of it is masked by the rook at g5. But if the rook moves, then the force will come back. So queen does not want to go there. Queen goes to h3. Bishop comes back and attacks the queen. Okay. So queen goes to e6. That is the only square left for the queen. Now at this point of time, now white moves, takes this opportunity to take the pawn and at the same time attack the queen. Can you see how cleverly Morpheus, his e5 pawn is now defended by the rook at g5, and the knight can move. It took the pawn and again attacks the queen. So queen doesn't have any more squares left. So it goes to e7. Queen goes to e7. Now there is one move that white makes, which is like preparation for attack, but it is not an attack immediately. So knight comes to e4. Okay, preparing the next move. It is like next move, the knight can go to d6 and check the king, or the other knight can go to f5 and attack the queen. Right, queen black is like completely on the back foot now, and he does not get any chance to develop any of his other pieces. Okay, so what happens now? Black tries to kick back the white rook at h6, sorry, g5, playing h6. Right, so what is the next move? Again attack on the black queen, knight to f5. So queen
E6.
comes back to e6, right, comes back to e6. Now
Knight will move to F5.
knight from f to d6. Acha.
D6,
So
sorry.
this is what. So now if you see the notation, right, I will tell you. So now both knights could have moved to d6. Now how do you write down in your move that the knight from f has moved to d6? So you will write it as, let us see the score sheet. Knight from f to d6 and plus. Plus means check. Okay, so this is how it is written, because if the other knight had moved, then you would have written is knight e to d6. Okay, the knight from the e file is going to d6, or the knight from f file is going to d6. So when there is a confusion, then you have to write. Okay, so nf d6 check here. Okay, nf to d6 check. So bishop takes it. Okay, bishop takes it. So the other knight takes it, again gives a check. This is still attack, right? Black is still getting attacked. So king moves to d8. Next move, white's rook is still under attack. Huh? You have to pay attention to that. So,
Outwards, now spelling.
but before you move the rook,
L-O.
bishop comes out again to c4, again attacking the queen, and behind the queen attacking the f7 pawn, which is also attacked by the knight at d6. Can you see the knight? See, it is cleverly defending the bishop also in the current position. At the same time, together, both the knight and the bishop are also going to attack the f7 square. Right? This is called as harmonious development, like how the pieces are cooperating with each other. This is like,
Then queen can directly go and kill the knight, right? Next move she'll go and kill.
the pawn is
Oh,
supporting
no,
the
pawn
knight.
is there. Yeah, I
Ah.
forgot. I did not see that. Yeah, sorry.
See everything. See, this is like a master. Okay, so they're like a master guitarist or a master this player, right? How everything moves in symphony, right? So similarly, Paul Morphy was a great magician. You can say that. In his hands, the pieces moved like magic. Okay, so what does the queen do? Now, queen goes back to e7. Okay, hardly any square left for the queen.
She said, wait, you?
So, knight to f7 check, attacking the king. King wants to go away. It knows that if it comes to the e file and all, it will get really under severe attack, because queen is ready. White, can you see white queen is now ready to jump to h5 if required. Okay, so but that does not happen. That black king goes to c7. It wants to go to the other side of the board and thinking that it will be safe there. And now at this point of time, Morphy has seen the entire checkmate from this move. Another 6 moves ahead, there is a checkmate, and it is like a forced sequence. So Morphy has seen all of this. Normally, when you are attacking, you will not exchange the queens, because the attacking side requires a lot of force to do successful attack. So, and the defending side normally tries to exchange the pieces, because the more you exchange the pieces, the less effective the attack becomes. Especially if in an attacking position, when you are under attack, if you are able to exchange of the queens, generally it is a good neutralizing move, but not here. Here it is different. Okay,
So
so
queen to
white,
d6.
yeah, queen to d6. White plays queen to d6, offers the queen exchange. So black has no option other than taking the queen. Pawn takes it. Okay, check. Now king has no square to go except b6, right? Nowhere else. It cannot come to d8. Knight is already protecting the square at d8, right? So king goes to b6.
b6.
Okay, king goes to b6. Then what will be the next move?
Bishop to e3.
Yes, bishop to e3. Correct. So bishop to e3, bringing up one more of your pieces into the play and checking the king,
Yeah.
right? So that, then black again has got no option other than playing c5, only move,
g5. Yeah.
no other move. So c5. So bishop takes c5, check again.
Check. Then
Okay.
knight to no. Then they
If
play
the
knight.
if king moves to c6, then it is a checkmate. Next move.
King
If
to
king moves to
A5.
King to a5. King to a5.
yeah, king to a5. But if king moves to c6, then
Then checkmate.
how?
It's a reward to c6 now. King.
If king goes to c6, then knight goes to
Knight to
d8 and
D8.
check.
Knight with no. Yeah.
Yeah, knight goes to d8 and it is checkmate.
I was gonna say that. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. So king goes to a5.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a mistake?
There is no moves left for now. Now, see, the mistakes all happened in the earlier. Now, in fact, it is a forced mate. There is nothing black can do now. So king goes to a5. King goes to a5. Then now you have to finish off the
Rook to
king by
To g3. Rook to
yeah,
g3.
rook to g3 now, and he wants to bring the rook back into attack. Now, it doesn't matter what black plays. Absolutely anything black can play. Doesn't matter. Next move is checkmate. Can you see what all black can move? Black can
Yes.
put b6. Black can play b5. Black can play knight to c3. Sorry, c6. Right? Anything of that doesn't help because the rook is coming to a3 and checkmate. Right? So this is a really powerful way of actually demonstrating how development is more important and how to punish if black starts doing
Morpheus finished the game fast.
very fast and very, very powerfully, right?
Yeah.
Very powerful. So I think this is a game that you should again and again go through to just get it into your this one. How, I mean, what is more important? I think Morpheus naturally, and what was his age when he played this game? His age was 12 years. Morpheus. Okay.
When he was 12 years old, he played this.
Yeah.
No way. Against McConnell James. Was he big?
He was a decent chess player, McConnell, but not
Was
like
he
an expert, but
no, was he a big guy? Like, what is
yeah,
it?
he was an elderly guy from the New Orleans chess club. So he must be some
12 years
30
old
years.
of Morphe.
But this
My
guy was
God.
like 12 years, right?
Wow.
So
Okay.
yeah, so that is why actually Morphe was a genius, absolutely genius. So, all right, so I think we have seen this. I wanted to show one more game of Morphe. Maybe I will show it next Wednesday.
Yeah, time is over now.
Yeah, now the time is over and Sunday is going to be Playfest. So maybe on next Wednesday I will show the most famous game of Morphe, which is again a very instructive game to learn. So yeah, so that is there. Means cool. So yeah, I don't. So that is what we'll do, and I will also maybe on thing I will tell. Yeah, Magnus Carlsen app is there. Yes, Magnus Carlsen app is there. In fact, Magnus Carlsen has also got majorly into chess coaching, and he has got a company. He has acquired a company called Chessable, and plus some other things are there. So he's doing great. And yeah, you
Sir,
can.
I just want to ask one thing. Is Magnus Carlsen from German? Like, is he
He's from
German?
Norway. He's from
Norway.
Norway. Norwegian.
Okay.
So yeah. So all right. Yeah, Ashish. No, Ahan has raised his hand. Ahan, yeah, tell me, Ahan. You can now speak. Actually, I'll unmute.
Sir,
all. Yeah.
sir, is there class on Friday? Is there class on Friday?
No. Now we will switch back to the thing where we will have only classes on Wednesday and Sunday. Sunday will be the
Okay.
playing phase, and Wednesday will be the learning phase. Right. So next class will be on next Wednesday.
Okay, fine.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. So all right. I think that is what is.
I